I'm here. Just had a bit of a challenge getting my headset hooked up. So, everybody, delighted once again that you're here. I just had a conversation this morning with Bill Constantino, a name most of you know, from the fact that he created how the forgiveness process works, the PowerPoint on why is this happening to me again. So just want to publicly thank Bill once again. I was back, I don't even know, got to be close to 10 years ago when he did teacher training, and Bill's a corporate trainer, so after it's he that we have to thank for the fact that we have that PowerPoint on how the forgiveness process works. And after he did teacher training, he's being a corporate trainer, is really good at doing PowerPoint. He said, "Hey, I'd like to create the schematic, the PowerPoint for how the forgiveness process works." So we went back and forth for about a year, and that was the result. That's not a project I have in mind at some point when we were actually, that's part of the reason why I talked to him this morning. I talked some time ago, a couple of years ago, about we're going to see if we can get that turned into a whiteboard presentation, but significant costs involved in turning it into a whiteboard presentation, so it's on hold. But anyway, delighted that you're here, and again, thank you, Bill, for that PowerPoint. If you haven't watched it and you've engaged the forgiveness process, it's a very significant step-by-step. I mean, we literally went back and forth. He'd send it to me, I'd give him feedback. It took a year to complete that, so it's a really valuable piece of information. And it's a piece of information that literally took me 35 years to learn, to understand, working full-time with the first century Aramaic forgiveness process. It is so outside of the conceptual framework of our culture. You know, we're so imbued with this one world religion of blame, and the forgiveness process being out there, we're going to forgive somebody else, and the fact that the mechanism by which first century Aramaic forgiveness process is understood is, I don't know if anybody, I feel blessed that I had this physics background, this electronics work, all the pieces of the puzzle that came together for me to finally go, after 35 years of working with it, having the brain cells to go, oh, that's what happens. The psychology that's putting all the pieces together is an interesting journey, and a short format for you, if you're wondering what I'm talking about. We'll just lay a foundation that there's a very powerful piece of research that was done back in the 50s, has not been refuted in the psychological realm. And it's the most, I understand it's the most quoted research in psychological history. And it is a piece that showed that, you know, in the laboratory, they had people hook up to electrodes and they're measuring brain cell firings. And what they deduced was that in a time frame where there were 10,000 measurable units of electrical activity happening in the brain, so there's quite a bit of energy, quite a bit of information moving in the brain. And of course, that's just measuring the brain, not the whole physiology, not the whole body where the mind really functions. But in that same time frame, what they determined was that the max amount of data that went into the constructs of the mind, the max amount of data that went into our perceptions was 9 bits. So in the time frame where 10,000 units of electrical activity are happening just in the brain, the max amount of data that goes into conscious awareness is 9 bits, a tiny, tiny fragment. And, you know, I've never seen anywhere but in the first century Aramaic teachings of Yeshua and Course in Miracles, which is the first century teachings of Yeshua, what that really means. And the bottom line conclusion, what I finally came to understand was, so if 10,000 brain cells are firing and the mind reduces it down to 9 bits of data, what drives that process? And Yeshua had the answer. It's our goals. You'll notice that unless you're just a generally miserable person, that you're pretty happy with virtually everybody in your life as long as they're fulfilling all the goals you have for them. And you'll notice the only time you point upset at someone, yourself or someone else, is when they're not fulfilling the goal you hold for them or have held for them in the past. It might be somebody from 30 years ago. And you say, yeah, I've always been at odds with that person. I never really want to see them again. Well, what happened? Oh, I wanted them to do, and notice every time there's somebody you want to separate from someone, somebody you want to puke on, somebody you want to throw the garbage at, somebody you want to blame. Oh, yeah, well, you see what happened 30 years ago was he didn't do this when I wanted him to. He didn't fulfill my goal. So what 35 years ago finally came to me was, so the goal drives, the goal recruits the data energetically. The goal recruits the data from the unconscious mind that the mind is going to reflect as our conscious awareness. The picture world, the sensory world that we think we see out there and that we feel, but is really a product of the mind. Great line in the Course in Miracles says, you must allow yourself to become aware of the distorting power of the way you want it to be. So goals recruit data to build perception. If perception is based in hostility or fear, i.e. the data that the goal has recruited is some form of hostility or fear, now your perception is based in corrupt data and will always lead you astray. How does forgiveness work? What's the core of forgiveness? Well, I'll quote it from Course in Miracles. I did not understand it in the Course in Miracles. I saw it, but I did not understand it until I gathered the brain cells from the Aramaic to understand it. But the Course in Miracles defines forgiveness precisely the way, and this is, to me, a mega piece of evidence that says the same person did these two bodies of work. This is not something that two different people came up with as some sort of an accidental insight or a purposeful insight and came up with this. But the Course defines forgiveness as, and you'll see it, I think it's Workbook Lesson 185, paragraph 7, let go all the things you think you want, your goals, your trifling treasure, that's what the Course calls a goal, your trifling treasure put away, and leave a clean and open space within your mind for Christ to come. So cancel the goal, the 9-bit mind's perception collapses. Now you have a clean and open space within your mind where the active presence of love can come, and the fact that you've canceled the goal, that perception now drops into its own footprint, which is in the unconscious mind. It's not a very nice image, but it's it's one that everybody gets. You'll remember when the 9/11 towers went down, what happened? They dropped into their own footprint. If you have an unconscious part of your mind that you're having trouble cleaning out because you can't get in touch with it, here is a precise tool developed over 2,000 years ago for exactly how to do that. You cancel the goal. Remember, we can plug in here the insight from Carl Jung, where he says, until the unconscious becomes conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. You'll think it's somebody out there. Are you pointing upset at anybody out there, including the person you look at in the mirror? Then you're become aware of the distorting power of the way you want it to be, because you have a goal for somebody else to be to blame. And if you've got a goal for somebody else to be to blame, your mind will cooperate and give you a construct, a perception in spades about how, of course, this is somebody else's fault. So what do? You let go of that trifling treasure. You cancel the goal. The construct of the mind collapses into its own footprint, which is in the unconscious. And now you have access and you can bring the unconscious conscious. It always amazes me. 40 plus years of doing this with people. And it always amazes me when they're quiet and they breathe and they cancel a goal, what surfaces, what they get the opportunity to look at. If you pay attention in your mind, when you cancel the goal, you'll get to see that part of your unconscious that's running your life. and you get to expose it to love, and it gets removed. And that's called forgiveness. In a culture where we're told, of course, it's everybody else's fault that you're in pain, but just let them off the hook. Just forgive them. Never forgive anybody for anything, ever, 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 including yourself. Taught us a Greek idea of pardoning in place of forgiveness. So people are running around, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. But if I let you off the hook for something painful that's happening inside of me, what benefit is it? Have I accessed a part of my own mind that's holding this pain? No. And so forgiveness is the act of canceling the goal, allowing yourself to drop into your own unconscious mind, making the unconscious conscious. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that every time you forgive, you're going to go into a cognitive awareness of what's in the unconscious. Sometimes you just step into processing it unconsciously. But that genius piece of information, so that's what Bill took on creating. So if you haven't seen it, jump on a YouTube channel, just go to YouTube, search for Michael Rice, and then put in the words search for PowerPoint in our, I think we're up over 700 videos now. So search for that. And by the way, if you listen to a video or watch a video or listen to one of the radio shows on the YouTube channel, please, please, please click a like and subscribe, because that helps us to build that channel. We're looking to build it so that, you know, the income that dropped out when we stopped traveling and came to here to take care of Jeannie's dad and our granddaughter, that'll help, you know, fund some of these projects we're doing. So please click a like, join the channel, and that will help to build till we get to the point where hopefully YouTube will monetize and we'll start to get some income from all those hundreds of videos. So anyway, if you haven't seen that, give it a watch. And if you need to refresh yourself, and I'll say this from the point of view of, why did it take me 35 years to understand the first century Aramaic forgiveness process? Because I had to build the brain cells for it. And our culture built us in the exact opposite direction. And one of the purposes of this show is to build, to assist people, to support people in building the brain cells for the truth of how life works, rather than Greek mythology and Greek mystery and Greek philosophy, which is what is fed to us in our culture. Even in our churches, if you went into, if Yeshua today went into most churches and listened to what they're saying, he'd say, that's all Greek to me. So pardon somebody if you choose to, but call it what it is. And then, if you're in pain, if you're in upset, and you pardon someone else because they did actually do something off the wall or illegal or moral or whatever, recognize you still have to be responsible for the fact that the pain you're experiencing, that you're feeling, I mean, the reason you're feeling is because it's inside of you. It's not outside of you. And so you want to collapse the blame-based mind into that unconscious dynamic, that part of yourself. And when you do, you pull it up in the presence of love and it dissolves. And now you've actually engaged in forgiveness. So in a nutshell, that's our appreciation for Bill. And Miss Jeannie, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up or anything happening in the chat room?
No, it is all quiet, and I went back out and checked my email, and I don't have any that we have not addressed. So
We're up to date with all questions.
Yep.
Cool.
Oh, a hand just went up.
Oh, great. Let's say hello.
It's Dusty 904. You're on the air.
Well,
aloha. Thank you.
Aloha.
Yes, and I have a question for you.
Yes.
You use the term a lot, goals, and of course, if you're sick and you want to get well, wouldn't that be a good goal? I wonder if you could define some parameters on the word goal.
Great question, because many people hear the "why is this happening to me again" workshop, and they say, well, so I'm not supposed to have any goals. No, 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 no. Goals are wonderful things. They're awesome. Have goals or your life will flop. You don't cancel a goal because there's anything wrong with holding the goal. I mean, sometimes people have really destructive goals, and we say, yeah, you want to get rid of those just because they're not going to help your life. But even the wonderful goals that you have, you cancel, not because you don't want it, not because you can't have it, but you recognize that when you load it in your mind, it accesses and recruits corrupt data from your mind to build your perception. So whenever you load a goal and hostility or fear comes up, cancel that goal. Now, you might need to, they asked Yeshua, well, how many times do we have to do this darn worksheet? Is 7 times enough in an Aramaic? He said no. He said 77 times 70, which I would interpret as, rather than a literal number, an infinite number of times until you're complete with that goal. Once you've completed with the resonance of hostility or fear from that goal, and it's still something you reasonably want, load the goal again. Have it, have at it and go create it. But you're never going to create it until you clean up the corrupt data in yourself that's resonated by that goal. But have all the goals you want. And, the Course calls it trifling treasure, calls it the way you want it to be. Sometimes people go to, and they want to change it to intentions. And I say, no, please leave the word intentions out. It's got nothing to do. Intentions is a totally different thing than a goal.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? You're not canceling a goal because there's anything wrong with it. You're canceling it because you recognize that it's recruiting data that's based in corruption in your own mind, and you want to clean out that corrupt data. And then go create it.
So it's kind of what you build that goal out of that defines something that would be better be released than kept, etc.
Well, actually, I'd do that. I'd put that one in reverse. It's what the goal resonates in you, what the goal recruits into activity in you. That if it's based in hostility or fear, it's corrupt data and you want to get rid of it rather than pursue it.
Yes, I get you. I get it. Yeah. So once it's installed, so to speak, if you find that there's anything to do with malevolence or hostility or fear, then you've got corrupt data. Is that right?
Correct. Within your own mind. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And, who wants to function out of a computer that is filled with corrupt data? It's always going to give errant directions, and errant directions in 2 ways, or 3 ways actually. Errant directions in that it's accessing toxic chemistry within the structure, in other words, diseases. That's 1. 2, when it's resonated into activity and we build perception out of it, then our perception is corrupted by it. So that's negative impact 3. And then the 3rd impact is that when I load a goal and it resonates something in me, the fact that energy by definition is motion, and if this energy moves in me, motion creates energy waves. And so not only does it corrupt my perception, distort and disturb my physiology, but it sets up a literal high energy wave that radiates to all the world that says this is what I want. And if what I'm asking for is corruption, somebody's going to show up and serve me up a plate of corruption. And when they do, of course, we've all been trained to go, and look what you're doing to me.
Right.
Rather than, I've been through this 87 different times with 42 different people, and I'm the only one that was here every time. Maybe this is about me.
Right.
And when I recognize that, then I get to start to process through it.
So let me see if I have my thinking in alignment with what I think I heard you just say, all in all.
Go for it.
It's one thing I mean, it's obvious if you're obviously loading in crap, hate or whatever, that kind of stuff. I mean, that's obviously a problem, but it's also whatever the goal or whatever you set in front of you. If you find that it's causing darker feelings or whatever, that's the tell. Okay.
You're being warned that you're engaging in a creative process that's not going to serve you. If you start moving from aliveness, joy, creativity into some sort of darker energy, my take, remember the Bruce Lipton, great videos on YouTube. He's a cell biologist, and what he's showing is that when you think a thought, the thought literally becomes a molecule within the body, a neuropeptide.
Right.
It lands on the cell.
Right.
When it lands on the cell, it inserts itself as energy in the cell, and if it's of a disintegrative nature, and my take is that emotions literally are the result of a neuropeptide landing on a cell, and the cell telling us whether this is something good for us or something destructive. So I load in a thought, a neuropeptide, and I breathe, and I go, "Wow, this feels so good." Then I know that I'm engaged in something constructive.
Right.
If I load it in and it's all of a sudden I'm starting to hold my breath and then my own cellular structure is warning me this is not an energy you want to create with. You want to get rid of this one, and the way you dump it is through forgiveness.
Right. Rotten. Yes. Okay. I'm a real fan of joy when I can get it, and
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and anytime, whether it's and sometimes I'll be in a meditative process, and I kind of go off here a little bit, and if I just go, wait a minute, just be joy, allow it, and all of a sudden things get brighter.
Yes.
Yeah. And that thing about the neuropeptide, I have told several people about that because I've known about it for a while also. And most of the time the phone or whoever, it just goes quiet.
Yeah, it's a giant piece of information.
Yeah. People don't know what to do with it, and I go, okay, next thing. And but okay, that's very good. I had I know what I wanted to ask. It was just a quick comment. You said it's not intention. You made the distinction between it, and I like that. And I mean, I get that. And I remember I was an acolyte, an altar boy in a high Episcopal church.
Right.
It's almost like the Roman Catholic, but without the Pope kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wore the little robes, the whole thing. Anyways, that was the only one for age 10 and 11 or whatever till out of high school.
I can just see you now, Dusty.
Well, I wanted to be
uniform, right?
Right. Well, I wanted to be on the stage, what I mean, part of the action, I didn't want to be, actually, I found myself one time out in the congregation, and I heard myself calling it, I'm sitting out in the audience, is how I went, oh, I caught myself, and I was just a little kid. But I used to listen to the whole service and the homily, the sermon.
Right.
And I believe that there's a part probably within all of us, but I know there was within me, a particular part that had a sense of whether this whole thing was on track or not. And most of the service was just, huh? And I remember certain things that were said, and I went, no, that's not quite right. You know what I mean? I could, in my heart, in my spirit, there were certain things that were resonated as true, but very little of all of that came out as clear light, shall we say. I'm just using a phrase here. Most of it was that whole, and Greek kind of thing, and anybody that's studied any of the Greek mythology, it's just full of nothing but treachery and awfulness.
Yeah,
and
horrific. Just like our political system in our world today. That's what it's become. It's a reflection of the mind energy that we in mass have engaged in.
Yes, and I can't get that image out of my mind. I don't want to get that image out of my mind, really, actually, is Eisenhower's going out speech in 60, and he spent 2 years writing it. And if there's any military guy, that's known, or, whatever, political world figure that I thought had, for the most part, really great intentions and good sense, was him. And he's the one, as he went out, he did not want to give his speech to Congress, which usually is what happens. He wanted to give it to the American people because he knew that the problem had already started with the military-industrial complex.
Right.
And if for those that haven't seen it, he put it on the people. If I was to give my interpretation of what he said, and it seemed like in his eyes he knew that it was already co-opted by the, shall we say, the more greedier interests. And he would say, he put it on the American people. He said, an informed electorate, blah, 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 it's up to you. You've got to monitor this. And and it's funny that he said that in 60, and we went yippee-yo through the 60s and kind of missed that one altogether.
And we're paying the price for it today.
Yes, we are. And I will say, I'll finish my little bit here with a friend posted on Facebook something about, it was instead of the sculptures at Mount Rushmore, he had 4 of the major indigenous peoples, like Chief Joseph and Sitting Bull, as these are the ones that should be up there. And I wrote in something like, well, if you believe in karma or some version of what goes around comes around, well, here it is. Take a look at good old USA now. But I thought that was beautiful that someone posted that. We've seen things like that before, but that someone posted the original denizens of these parts.
Yeah. Well, when you think about the sacrilege, because it truly was a sacrilege, that was sacred native ground that they did those carvings on. It's horrendous.
Oh yeah, the whole thing was that, and that's to me. So the country, and a friend of mine who is a very literate author pointed that out a couple of days ago, that we started that with this country really started on that sort of thing. And so there's a lot to I don't know how you would say, to forgive
clean
and
up. Time to clean up.
Yeah. And so I guess that starts with each individual. That's the only way I've been able to figure it. And I understand you're trying to, and you start with yourself, right? And then you spread it from there. Is that correct?
That'd be my way. My thought, yes.
Okay. Well, and thank you for that explanation of goal. I like that. Appreciate it.
Honored and delighted, and just to ferret it out, what's the difference between an intention and a goal? You heard me talk last week. I was talking about Dan McDougald, who was my partner in developing Laws of Living, and he was the one who owned the manuscript that we're working with. And Dan was the one that ferreted out the difference between an intention and a goal, and his his favorite thing about intentions, when people would say, well, I'll get rid of my intentions. No, that's not what it is. What he used to say is that an intention can no more carry a stone. An intention can no more cause a behavior than a shadow can carry a stone. And recognizing that intentions are simply the raw material of our goals. And it's not until we look at the possibilities, all the raw material, gee, am I going to do it this way, this way, this way, this way, or this way, then I select one of them and I commit to it. Now I've got a goal. But until I select that intention and commit to it, it's not a goal, and it will not drive behavior. It will not drive perception. And then you tie that back, and Yeshua 2,000 years ago, in essence, the question they asked him when he gave this answer of what the first law was, they said, it's kind of like, if we're going to truly function as human beings, what's most important in this whole thing you call the law? It's so big, and so what's most important? And he didn't say, love your neighbor as yourself. He didn't say, love God. The word he used there was Rachma. He said, have Rachma when you think of the Creator, when you think of neighbor. And by so doing, you maintain self. And Rachma is a filter over intentions. In Aramaic.
Oh, right.
So Rachma, there are three basic filters. Only one can be active at a time. And each one filters out the activity of the other two. So we've got Rachma, love, we've got fear, and we've got hostility. When there's hostility, people's intentions are going to be destructive. When there's fear, people's intentions are going to be negative. When there's love, people's intentions are going to be loving. So if Rachma is active, the negative and the destructive intentions are filtered out. So one only has a range of intentions that are keyed to love to select from. If Rachma is active, and this is the beginning of the chain of perception, because then once I commit to this intention becomes a goal, and goal is the thing that recruits and drives perception. Which 9 bits of data am I going to get to use to guide my behavior here? So once I commit to this intention, then this goal in an instant goes through my whole multi-quadrillion, multi-generational database and selects the best information through resonance. It's just instant. Through resonance, selects the best information that's in my carbon-based memory system and in my genes to guide me in the achieving of this goal. And if what it recruits is some form of hostility or fear, corrupt data, then I'm going to flub in producing the result of that goal. I'm going to have poor guidance from my own mind.
I
So
love
if I have
that.
Rachma, then this filter is active, and the second activity of Rachma is that Rachma is the gateway that human life, love, enters the human form. If that gateway is closed, if hostility or fear are moving, then love, the essence of human life, what we are as a being, is gated out of the mind. It's gone. It's not available. People say, how could a human being do those sorts of things? When hostility or fear are active over intentions, human life is gated out. There's no human life there to make the determination. That's how people can do things that are just so incredibly, I don't know what the word is, sick, disgusting, just insane.
Right. So, if I'd been sitting in that church and the sermon that was given was what you just said, there would have been a part of me that would have lit up and went, I can feel the good stuff in here, But I really appreciate that thing about Bruce Lipton and intentions being a goal. I'm kind of seeing it like roots of a tree, kind of coming up, and take your pick of whatever's and act on.
And then in Aramaic, there's a second filter that relates to Rachma. and in Aramaic it's called kuba. And kuba is now the filter, Rahma is over the frontal lobes of the brain where intentions are stored. Kuba is over the back of the brain where perception is stored. Kuba serves a similar function for perception as Rahma does for intentions. When Kuba is active, then again there are three filters. There's hostility, there's fear, there's Kuba love. And if hostility is active in the perceptual mind, then or fear is active instead of Kuba, then people can get into doing just those crazy kinds of things. So when hostility is active, the only quality of perceptual content that the mind can produce is that which is irritating. When I said to Yesha, how do you tell where somebody's headed? He said, just look at their fruit. The fruit is what's going on in your mind. So if you're irritated, you know that, the reality comes up, this perceptual construct comes up, and I'm really irritated about that. Then I know that my hostility filter is active. If the fear filter is active, then the only quality of perceptual content that the mind has access to is that which is listening.
So let me see if I have this
Kuba
right.
is active, if Kuba is active, then the quality of perception is going to be loving. And when they talked about perfect love casts out fear, perfect love in Aramaic was Rahma and Kuba set together. The mind can't produce hostility or fear-based content if Rahma and Kuba are active. And we don't even have words for this in our culture.
No, we don't.
Like, what happened to it? It's all Greek to me. What happened to it? This has been known for thousands of years. It's like, gee, I'm with our shared electronic background, I've got a schematic. I know what this thing's supposed to do. Why did they disappear the schematic? Keep people stupid? Yeah, that's exactly it.
I just had an off-the-wall thought on just what you just said. What if in this country, everybody, instead of whatever languages they come from, which is a lot of it's the Greek, they spoke the Navajo? I'll bet the consciousness in this country would be totally different.
Navajo is Aramaic in its roots.
Yeah.
The Hawaiian language is Aramaic in its roots.
Yeah.
Pardon me, the Lakota Sioux language. Pardon me, you're right. Thank you, sweetie, for jumping in there. The Lakota Sioux language has Aramaic roots. I think they're one of the lost tribes, as the Hawaiians are.
Yeah, the Hawaiians have the same thing. And the one that stands out as being unique and I've had interactions with is the Hopi.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to kind of have their own, they consider themselves the center and the keepers of, Turtle Island or the world even, certainly.
Right.
Americas. And it's just, but I can go outside my door and just the cultural mismatch of what I perceive, at least, as being way off the mark, a sin, if you will, is so overwhelming. I either have to go dive in the ocean or come back in my house sometimes, either that or gear up with enough health and love to deal more effectively with all that. Because it's sort of like I don't know how many people live in this country, but it's like everybody and everything's a radio station. And all this electromagnetic or whatever it is fields does have I'm not going to say it's compelling, but it's impelling. And it takes a rather, I think a rather courageous stance to try to do what you and Jeannie and others and I'm trying to do, and that's stay true to the center of things as best as possible. And it's, for me, it's getting more difficult in certain ways. It shouldn't, but it is right now.
Well, when you step in to doing your work on deeper and deeper levels, you are going to go through. It's like going through the thick, stuck glue of the past, and it's just a necessary part of the process.
Right, and I'm game for all that. I'm not real fond of the raging infection inside my body. It's and I try to go, oh well, it's not, I try to deal with it as well as I can in every way I can. But until I get all these teeth out of my mouth, which are polluting it, and I can't find any medical organization that will help me deal with the anymore with the right type of antibiotic, which I'm not fond of taking anyway, but there's a time and a place.
Right.
And I need an intramuscular injection, and I'm getting all kinds of flack from dentists. Don't want to do it for some reason, and so at any rate, but it's funny how that when my I'm able to deal with just tremendous amount of things and feel like I'm being very productive until something comes along physically and goes bam. And as just a little, I don't know if this is, I don't think it's really a sidetrack so much as an addendum, but I saw a film clip one time, which can be seen every now and then. It was about 10 seconds, black and white, and a historical thing. And here's this guy he looks like the neatest guy in the world. He's happy, he's jovial, he's slapping his knees, slapping the back of someone, he's smiling, he's grinning. He looks like he couldn't be more happier and more joyful in the whole world. And you go, wow. And it turns out that what he's so happy about is another 100,000 Russians just bid it on the Eastern Front, and it was Hitler. Yeah. My point being, when people are getting what they think they want, it's easy. And a test of character, relative to the way I'm looking at it at least, is that when things are going to hell in a handbasket, you start kicking dogs and shooting birds or whatever it is, you know what I mean? What do you do with that? Can you keep your own honor throughout that and love?
When you realize that one of the functioning purposes of the mind is to reward you when you achieve a goal. So, and this is how people can get addicted to doing destructive things, what you just described with Hitler, is when you load a goal in the mind and you achieve that goal, the mind serves up a hit of dopamine, which has basically been referred to as our happy powder. I get a hit of, oh, this is good.
Happy powder.
And so, well, that's what it's been called.
Yeah.
That's what
like
dopamine really is. It gives you that buzz of, oh, accomplishment, did it, yay. All right. And so if we get addicted to achieving destructive goals, then you can be, quote unquote, appear to be happy about that.
Wow. Yeah.
And I just emailed you, and I'm sure Jeannie's probably already got the link in the notes from our conversation, but we have a schematic that we did of the mind, a poster, an 8.5 by 11 poster, with a schematic that gives you the rock, Makuba, the 3 filters, the whole thing, and how it works. So I just emailed that to you. And anybody else can pick it up in the notes.
Yes, mahalo for that. And
yeah.
And anyways, I don't have anything else right off, but it's great talking with you today and everybody.
Yeah, delighted. And as you use the word mahalo, I tap into, and I think that the best that I've been able to determine, the word aloha is an identical word rooted in the Aramaic as Rachma.
Yeah.
Think about the Hawaiian aloha. That's Rachma. It's literally that it comes out of. That's what had me key into when I was in Hawaii, and I was with the medicine man. He started to explain what aloha really means, and it's Rachma. That's the root of that whole culture. And you think, my understanding is in the history that the island of Hawaii was a very peaceful, amazing place until some of the South Pacific Islanders started to come in with their war and their hostility and fear games. But the aloha spirit was alive and well because they understood what the foundation of human life was. What's the first law? Brahma. What's the first law in Hawaiian? Aloha. That's Yeshua's answer.
And I can't tell you how affirming that is for me to hear, because I have thought that for years, that I could not see a distinction between the spirit of aloha and an open-hearted mahalo, and a lot of what I have experienced there as being anything separate. It all comes from what you're calling Rachma or whatever, by any name. And it's a beautiful, shining thing, and I treasure it.
I'll join you in that, my friend.
Yeah. And also, this is just isn't, I don't know if this is interesting at all, but on the Big Island, to make this very short, I met a woman. Well, I was fortunate enough to connect with a woman who was the living embodiment of the Hawaiian dance prior to the white man and the little, swinging hips hula hand thing.
Right.
And maybe it was the Polynesian influence, but it was just guys, and it was pretty jerky, and it was pretty much about hunting and being, macho and war and that sort of thing. But it was an established, Diana Key was her name, and I was very fortunate enough to be in a class where she had really good dancers all around the world come, and I got in the class just because she took one look at me, and I guess she saw the aloha spirit or something. I don't know quite what her frame of reference was, but she let me in gratis, except I never learned the dance because she was trying to direct all these good dancers on how to do this, but she had to sit down to play the drum, the ipu, which is a gourd, and then call out the chants, and then watch everybody, and she couldn't do it all at the same time. And I happened to be on her left side, and she just looked at me and says, "You know how to do this, don't you?" Yeah. And she handed me the gourd, and I never learned the dance, but I sure played the rhythm a lot.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
And it was an honor, regardless. You know what I mean? I just love the purity at the heart of, I guess, anything. Anything.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So, including this program and everybody's shiny centers that are listening to this, God bless you.
All right, my friend. You have a blessed one.
Okay.
Appreciate you. Okay. All right. Well, we've got about 5 minutes left, Jeannie.
And we have a hand up.
Oh, great. Let's go for it.
Okay. It is area code 541. Is this Miss Celinda?
Yes, it certainly is.
Welcome, young lady.
Thank you.
Former resident of Hawaii.
Oh, yeah, that's why I'm calling. This is for Dusty and all of us. There was a therapist who was part Hawaiian. His name was Don, I think, Pearsall. It was Pearsall, I believe. He wrote The Pleasure Prescription, and it was about the whole Hawaiian value system, the whole thing, including his take on the whole Ponopono, when it was originally a group rather than an individual process, because both
right.
are legitimate or useful. And I was just thinking about that book for him. And the menehune in the Hawaiian culture, there is some archaeological theory, or perhaps even evidence, I didn't investigate it too much, that they actually were the indigenous people before the Polynesians showed up. I'm walking, so pardon my puffing.
Go for it. You're fine. You're good.
And so I thought I'd share that with Dusty, and I was wondering if mahalo is like our namaste or our gratitude. Maybe someone can find that out by speaking with a native speaker. Something more than just thank you. It might be something to look for Dusty to ask questions about if he feels like
Dusty,
it.
are you still on?
He's not. He dropped.
Okay, maybe he can.
I'm not privy to the meaning behind the word, the mahalo greeting.
Well, it's always just thank you.
Right.
Mahalo nui loa. Thank
Appreciation.
You very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it could be anything along those lines. And so I share that with Dusty. And also I'll share with him, not because Louise Hay is an authority, but because she has resonated in my life. She certainly is an authority in her own right. But I just resonate with her work. And she has some interesting comments about teeth and gums. And I'll share those with Dusty in Heal Your Body. In case there's any resonance there, maybe you can use them in reference to worksheets or something. I thought that might be helpful, especially the positive affirmation, because I was watching Abraham this morning on YouTube, and Wayne Dyer was in the hot seat. And there's apparently, I've watched at least 3 of them, videos, short clips of him in the hot seat. And everything she said was, we keep focusing on what we don't want, which is what you say and what Dr. Tim says.
Yep.
Like when we get ourselves in alignment, the collective will be in alignment. So when we see these horrific events or things we don't like, we'll align ourselves and find out what we do want and then align ourselves. And the collective will take care of itself with the help of the Creator and Mama Earth, Ruha, our sacred breath. So I just share that because that's where I am really focusing my practice of doing my work. That one of the deep aspects that I want to explore and let go of things that do not serve me, because if they don't serve me, they sure won't serve the whole.
Right.
So I just thought I'd share that in case it helped anyone out there.
Awesome. Well, much appreciated, young lady.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
And
enjoy your walk.
Have a good show. Bye-bye.
It's in the plan. Blessings. Alrighty, bye-bye. And we're down at the last minute or so I'm going to just consume that minute or so by acknowledging a young lady who came into this world 6 years ago on this day. Has been circulating the earth for 6 years now, Aria Rain, our granddaughter. who is just this amazing, awesome, and inspiring little girl that has taught me so much. And just invite everyone to tap into Aria Rain, and if you would, send her that energy of active, present love to uplift her in her day at school today and her opportunity to celebrate her eternal day. So Aria, you are a deep blessing to every one of us.